Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Hey, Grant, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, having you back again, right?
Yes.
Man, it's thank you for coming back. It's a really honor to have you back, not only to share about your new book, Dominate the Game, which is going to come out this Friday. But I want to, because I'm all about mindset. So I'm really excited to just talk about your journey from just since I've had you on the show 3 or 4 years ago, but just your journey as a go-getter, because you do so many things that we're going to get into, as a branding architect, business consultant, executive coach, author, speaker, podcast host. I mean, you do a lot of stuff. So we're going to just learn a little bit about your journey, your mindset, and then we'll get in a little bit about your book. And I'm really, really excited to learn more about what motivated you to write your new book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my journey, first off, never thought I'd be where I'm at today. My goal when I was a kid was to climb the corporate ladder, be a Fortune 500 CEO. And so I spent a lot of time in my career on that path. And then after my dad had passed away very unexpectedly, that kind of changed my trajectory and thinking about what was the legacy that I wanted to leave behind, especially since my dad had passed away there was no notice. It was, no forewarning. And so that life is short, life is precious, tomorrow is never guaranteed, right? And so that made me kind of rethink the journey. And so I left on November 5th, 2019. So I just crossed the 3-year mark of entrepreneurship, and that would have been my dad's birthday. So I know we're going to talk about dates in a
Right.
little bit with the new book. And so I'm all about picking dates that have a purpose when you do things. And so for me, that was the date was my dad's birthday in 2019, and I left. And so I've been a full-time entrepreneur, started right before COVID, which was an interesting time for all of us. And you talk about mindset. I mean, it's we all had to adjust and pivot more so than we might have been used to, right? More so than some people might have been comfortable with. And you mentioned a minute ago that I've done a lot of different things. And I think when you look at people that have done great things, that are accomplished, that are very successful, not saying that that's me, but just, think people that have done
That's you.
things, it really goes to your mindset and to your confidence. And the confidence doesn't mean that you have all the answers or that you know it or that you have all the competencies. It just means that you believe in your ability to figure it out. And I heard someone say before, Brendan Burchard, who does a lot of high performance coaching, he said, if you take someone that's a high performer and you put them in any situation, they're going to figure it out. And that's really what confidence is. It's like, no matter what situation I'm in, what environment I'm thrown into, I'm going to do what I need to do because I believe in my ability to do that so that I can move forward and be successful.
Well, and also too, I want to add on to that because I've always when you were on my show last, or any show that I host, I always talk about mental toughness on the front end of my show, which we're really not going to go there per se, but I do want to add to what you're saying with regards to your mental toughness, because when you think about all the things that you have done in your past that's led you up to this part of your journey. Again, I'm just going to focus on your credentials. I mean, you have 2 bachelors, 2 masters, an MBA, JD. You're a veteran. Am I missing anything? You're a mother of 5.
I have 5 kids.
Yeah, right. So just let alone all of that takes a level of mental toughness. I understand it takes confidence too, and discipline and commitment, and I can keep on throwing all the attributes there. But when you think about that, the mental toughness, like, where does this all come from for you because you don't stop, like you're trailblazing, you just keep on going. Where does this come from?
It's a great question. If you ever asked my mom that question, she'd say, well, she was pretty stubborn and hard-headed growing up. And I think there's a part of that. And, you have to be firm in kind of what it is that you want to do and have that stubbornness in that, whatever you set out to do, you're going to get yourself back up, right? The saying goes, fall down 7 times, stand back up 8. Right. And so every time you get knocked down, you got to just pick yourself back up and forget. You're familiar in the sports world and you deal with a lot of people, in coaching and athletes. And so it's about focusing on the next play, right? Something happens, it doesn't go your way. If you're a football player, you missed a tackle, you dropped a pass, you can't remain stuck in that. You got to focus on the next thing. The same thing for us off the field, off the court, is if you make a misstep or something happens that doesn't go your way, you can't wallow in that. You take that lesson or those lessons from that experience and you got to keep on moving forward. You can't just stay stuck. And so I think for me, that's something that I've always done, and learning not to take things personally and understanding that everything is there for a purpose. Like, I believe there are lessons that happen in things that are not the outcomes that we want. And when you realize that those things happen for that reason, to teach you that lesson, it's easier to shake them up and say, okay, got it. I didn't get what I wanted here. Let me learn from this experience and figure out, how do I take this thing that happened and help me to move forward? And it makes it easier to continue to stay mentally tough when you have that perspective.
Yeah. And you brought up the word being stuck, or not being stuck. And I know with all the things that you do, one of the things that you do is executive coaching. So I'm going to kind of jump forward in some of my questions here. I was going to say this towards the end, but since you brought up that word, when you think about some of the things that you address, like helping people advance their career, helping them activate their voice, giving them more presence, executive presence. Do you find that a lot of when you're doing this one-on-one coaching, executive coaching, do you feel that people are coming to you because they are stuck? And how do you get them unstuck?
That's a great question. I feel like they are not necessarily stuck in terms of, hey, I don't know what action to take, because a lot of people feel stuck is that, right? Hey, I don't know where to go, or I feel like I'm not doing enough. For me, with a lot of people that I work with, it's more of a stuck in terms of, what should I say to be able to be a more effective communicator, to enhance my executive presence, as an example. Or I do a lot of work with corporate professionals that are looking to get to that next level, VP level, C-suite, whatever. How should I package myself so that I am differentiating myself from all the other great people out there that have impressive backgrounds? So it's stuck in that way versus stuck in, I'm not moving forward because I'm not taking action on, things to drive results. Like, they're getting results in other things. They just don't know how to move forward in this space, but it's a different kind of stuck. Right.
No, I think also too, I think depending on what it is in our life, not, we have blinders, and that means not on everything. There's some things we got immense clarity, and we know how to execute and get things done. But there is some things that we have blinders on because of belief systems or whatever. So I hear that it's a different kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So this is a moment before we get into your book. I want to a little bit crack open the chest a little bit, just to kind of learn a little more about you. And have my listeners learn more about you. You wrote a book in 2013. I'll Move the Ball, which is awesome because you love, your DNA is football. So you use a lot of terminology, jargon from the game of football, American football. When you think about when you wrote that book, 2013 to now, so your new book, Dominate the Game, what do you think you've learned the most about yourself between the two books?
That's a great question. So what I've learned about myself the most, I would say, and this might be a different answer, is the impact that you can make in unintended spaces and the influence that you have. And I'll share what I mean by that. So when I wrote Move the Ball, my focus was on corporate professionals, people who loved football just like I did. And how do you take these strategies from the sport and apply it in your career, in your life, in business to move forward? And little did I know that, and I know we've been connected for a long time, that this Move the Ball movement, which it evolved into from the book, really made an impact in the professional sports community. And there were a lot of student athletes as well as NFL players and other football league players that got behind this movement and started adopting these principles. And so that wasn't my intended Now, as I realized that I was making that influence, then I started shifting and doing more work in that space, but that's not where I thought I would go. And so for me, it's just interesting. It's a reminder that you don't know where life is going to take you, and the journey. You may have one plan and one path, and something happens and you go in a different direction. And so I think that's one piece. The other piece is that I never really focused on the sports space back when I wrote Move the Ball book, even though sports is my thing. I'm a football girl through and through. But because I didn't know anybody in that industry, I allowed that to be a limitation or a constraint on where I wanted to focus my effort and activity. I say it that way because I do believe I can do anything that I want to. So I'm stubborn and I'm committed, but I was never committed to that because I was like, it's a lot of work and I've got another path that I also enjoyed. And so I didn't think about, well, I don't have any connections, but it's not that hard to build that if you really concentrate an effort in there. And I did pivot and shift, and the growth has been incredible. But so I think for me, I wish that I had not put that limitation or that frame of thinking, on me back when, because I might have been doing some other things today. Who knows, right? You don't know where the journey will go.
Right. Well, and thank you for sharing that, because I can share something very similar with my journey. And again, this is more about you than it's about me, but I connect with what you're saying. When I started going down my path as a mental performance coach and creating my company, I spent 13 years playing football. I was a quarterback, and you would think that would be like my bread and butter. I'd go straight to football coaches and football players.
Right.
But when I started this journey, 8 years ago, I limited myself by making a perception that the game of football is not ready for someone like me. The type of the vibe, the culture is just not ready for a mental performance coach. And so I went other directions, which was cool. Like I worked with tons of different kind of athletes and coaches in sports, but I kicked myself because there was some fear there that I'd have to deal with. Maybe something that I know so well of them saying no, or we're not ready for you, or this doesn't fit our culture, So, so I kicked myself a little bit, but now that's changing as we speak. But same thing. I put that limit on myself.
Yeah.
So, one more thing about mindset here, because I know you speak, you do a lot of speaking, a lot of coaching, a lot of workshops. Just to get in your mind a little bit, do you get nervous before you speak?
Sometimes I think we all get nervous to some degree. There's a spectrum, right? So I don't have sweaty palms and
Right.
Feel like I'm gonna faint, but I mean there's still a little bit of apprehension just because you are going in front of a new audience. Obviously, the bigger the audience, there might be a little bit more apprehension, but I've done it so many times. It's just like, okay, it's just another time, here we go. But there's a little bit of an apprehension that occurs probably right beforehand, right? So not while I'm sitting there waiting, but it's like when it's about to be showtime, then there's a little bit like, oh, okay, here we go. Let's not forget the points that I want to make. Or, you place this pressure on yourself that you want to make sure that you hit everything.
Right. Do you have a routine that you go through to calm the nerves, to get a little more locked in, or is it just you're in full trust mode and you just trust everything?
It's more the latter. Yeah, it's good to breathe. I don't do breathing exercises. I just take a few, breaths just to kind of relax myself. But I kind of just trust that, hey, it's going to be what it's going to be. And the more that you've done something, the more confident you feel in it, right? So, and if I forget to talk about something or mention it, it is what it is. You just go with the flow.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I'm with you. There's so many times where I'm speaking and coaching. It's all about next play speed. So many people don't know that I forgot or I screwed up but I just off to the next. So they don't even know, but I know.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So what do you think, through all these years from your first book to your book now, what's your proudest moment within, whether if it's writing books, working with clients, doing all the things that you're getting into, like what's your proudest moment?
Wow, that's a great question. No one has ever asked me that question before. My proudest moment, I would say, yeah, I'd look at it as the last 3 years, right, of being an entrepreneur. One, I'm still an entrepreneur, so that's good because
Right.
especially making it through COVID. But I don't think that's my proudest moment. I guess I'll say this, being familiar with the sports space, it's so competitive, and there are so many people that don't see your worth, especially being a woman trying to say, hey, I know this game called football, and there are so many things that I can teach you on how to be successful in XYZ. So a lot of people that don't take you seriously. There's a lot of people that don't believe in your ability and all these things. And whenever you have people like that, you have a choice to make. You can listen to them and you can let them deter you, or you can continue on. And I mean, there's been so many people that did not see the value, but I haven't changed who I am to please those people, or to sign a deal, or to create an opportunity. Like, I've stayed true to who I am, and if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay, right? And so the right people are going to attract you. I mean, there are players, I have a number, I mean, you've seen things that I post about. There's some really great accomplished NFL guys that stand behind the brand, and there's other people that didn't see the value or didn't give me the time of day, and that's okay. I'm not going to chase you, because and so I'm proud of that. I would say the most is that it's easy to want to chase. It's easy to compromise who you are because you're trying to make that big connection or sign that big deal. But I haven't compromised my authenticity or, chase to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It seems like you're really grounded in your lane, and it's just there's some people who are going to jump in your car and drive with you, and there's some that are not. And
Right.
basically, and I've learned this too, I'm ready when you are. And if you're not ready, or you have some kind of perception, cool, right on. It's not going to affect my focus and my emotions and my thoughts.
Right. Can I share a story? Because I think it's important sometimes to share things that aren't fun, right? It's great to celebrate successes, but it's always good to hear things that are not successful, or things that are hurtful or frustrating, because they can help people connect, right? It's about relatability. So, we're all trying to elevate and get to the next level, and we're out there networking and trying to build those opportunities. And I had an opportunity with a fairly well-known, I will not mention the name, NFL player through his dad. And his dad is like, maybe we can help you with your brand. I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be amazing. And so for 8 months, we had been talking about this, and the dad was like, we'll meet up. First, we're going to meet Super Bowl weekend to talk about collaborations and stuff, and that didn't work out, and just many different opportunities. So finally, I was going to be on a plane to meet with the dad, and the day before, we hadn't set a time just yet. We had a day, but didn't lock in the actual time. And I'm like, hey, I'm hopping on a plane, let me know the details. He completely ghosted me. So I had other things to do in that city. So it wasn't like that was the only reason to go there, but that was the primary reason why I booked the ticket, schedule it for when I did. And so, never heard from him. Then he continues to follow me on social media. He's liked my posts. I'm just like, we're done. I would still love the opportunity to work with your son and collab, but it's not going to be through you. Right. And so, and the thing too is there were, not to go into too many details, but there were some, I'll call them red flags, that if it was anybody else, I would have been a little bit suspicious. But because it was the dad of this well-known player, I was like, no, I trust you that this is going to happen. And I wouldn't have placed that trust in an everyday Joe. If it didn't add up, you'd be like, wait a minute, and so that was a lesson for me to learn, because I had learned that lesson years before, and I said I would never do that. And because of who he was, or who he was the dad of, I put those blinders on, and I didn't, I ignored the flags. And so when this happened, I'm like, yep, I saw it coming, the signs were there. But, I could easily reach out to him because he still follows my stuff. But I'm like, no, we're done. You broke that trust. You didn't value my time. You haven't even said you're sorry. So no, and so, but so many people are like, oh my gosh, that's such and such as dad. I'm going to still try to chase, right? Nah, I don't do business like that.
Right. Exactly. And I'll throw some football out there. All right. Some terminology. It's those moments. And then I don't care if it's, in business and relationships, friendship, whatever it is, there's certain moments in life, certain situations that allows you to read the D a little bit better, right?
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, so
Mhm.
you blown a coverage, right? Threw the ball in the wrong part of the coverage. Well, next time I will make sure that I read it a little bit better. You're more aware now.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think it's great to talk about this because I've gone through a lot of stuff like that. Big contracts that got pulled out, in the ninth inning. Um, and I've realized, as much as I've gotten really upset at the time, which is okay to get upset, you're human. Allow yourself to
Right.
work through those emotions. But it's taught me how to create space with it and to forgive them, forgive yourself for getting a little bit upset, but then just create the space, because I want to bring more abundance in my life. And I don't want to keep on holding that feeling of like,
Right.
you did me wrong. No, man, like
Yes.
it is what it is. But
Hmm.
if you're ready, I'm ready. If not, I
Right.
got more space for someone else that is ready.
Yeah. And I like what you mentioned about, we're all human beings and we have emotions. So that day, I mean, I was mad that day. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this a great day because I'm here. And I did. But when
So
I got back to my hotel room that night, I was in tears because I'm like, this is pretty messed up. For 8 months, I've been cultivating this relationship. I never asked for help. You offered it to me.
right.
And so it was very hurtful to know that someone would let you get on an airplane and then ghost you, right? We're professionals. So yeah, there was a time where I was not in a good emotional state for that evening. And then you got to focus on the next play, right? And so you pick
Right.
yourself up and you focus on the next thing. And with this particular individual, if he were to reach out, I would not be rude. I'm a professional and I'm going to always hold myself in that regards. And we
Yeah.
all should do that. So I will conduct myself in a professional manner, but I've learned, right? Okay, I'm not going to trust you, but I will be courteous and I will be a professional to you because that's who I am.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, we all gotta we have our values, we have our barriers, right? I totally get it.
Mhm.
But for people that are listening too, it's, I think we teach a lot about how to deal with adversity and mental skills and all this stuff. It's not about shutting those feelings out. We're human. It's okay. It's just, how
Yes,
long do you want to stay in those feelings? And then can you get a lesson from it so you
right.
can build more awareness so you're prepared for the
Mhm.
next thing if it's somewhat similar, right?
Right, exactly.
So thank you for sharing. It I say this because a lot of people, I know you have a great brand. I have a great brand. A lot of people put out great content. But on the other side of that content, there is stories like this that we go
Mhm.
through, right? So it's real. So I appreciate that. Um, so let's get into your book. We're like 2.5 days or 2 days away from releasing your new book, Dominate the Game.
Yes.
Um, there's so much to talk about, but let's just get into it. Like, what motivated you to write this book? And did you always know you had a second book in you?
Yes. Yes and yes. Yes. All yes and no. Yeah, so I love to write. I'm not like a blog writer, that's not my thing, but I do like to write pieces at times and I like to write books. This is my second full book. I've contributed to another book earlier this year and I did always know I wanted to write another book. Right after I published Move the Ball back in 2013, I was like, all right, let's write the next one. And then I paused because life got busy and stuff, but it had always been in the back of my head to write another one. And I was in Tampa last summer, and a friend of mine and I were just talking about competitive athletes, and he played college football. He's a sports agent now. And he was talking about how athletes make great employees because they always show up ready to perform, even when they're not feeling like it. And it made me think about, well, how am I showing up every day? And I look at what I've built with my brand and how I've gotten to the point or it to the point of where it is. And it's really about how I showed up every day. And so I thought, you know what? That's what the book is going to be about. It's going to be about, are you showing up the right way so that you can move the ball and dominate the game? And so that really is what sparked the desire to write this specific book last summer. So I spent the last year writing and more writing. And so, yeah, it's neat to see it. Almost the official launch is in 2 days. And so
Yeah.
it's here.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get it in the mail last week and hold that first copy in hand was an incredible feeling, because it's something I've wanted to do for so long.
Oh yeah. I know that feeling too. It's a finished product. I mean,
Yes.
to see it to the end, to its finished product is awesome. Now I want to get more into the content of it as well.
Mhm.
But I'm very familiar with numbers and the significance of numbers. And we were talking about this before the show. You're releasing it this Friday, which is 11/11.
Mhm.
So share with my listeners kind of the importance of releasing this book on that date. With those
Yeah,
numbers.
so 11/11, I am a numbers person. Prime numbers are kind of something that I like, since my birthday is on a prime number, and 11 is a prime number. 11/11 is something that a lot of people think is a lucky display. So I thought, as we were looking at dates to announce the official release, I was like, I want it to have meaning and significance, just like my dad's birthday and when I went to become an entrepreneur. So I said, you know what, let's do 11/11. Also, a little fun fact, because I'm into prime numbers, there's 23 chapters in the book, which is a prime number. So there's a lot of prime numbers throughout the book, and in different ways. And then so I thought, you know what, let's do 11/11 because it is a prime number. A lot of people find it lucky. And also, as you mentioned earlier, I am a veteran. I'm still serving. And so 11/11 is Veterans Day. So that's also a nice tie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when you think about this book, I know you say you like writing, but was there how different was it writing this book from your last? Was it challenging? Was it easier?
It's a great question too. So this book is complementary to Move the Ball. And so it was harder in the sense that I wanted to make sure that I was providing a lot of distinct information. And I do reference Move the Ball a bit in the book, but I wanted it to stand on its own and also be unique content. So I think from that standpoint, because the books do go hand in hand, thinking about how do I make it different? What types of things should I incorporate into it? My writing style has also changed. It should have changed in 9 years, right? And so,
Right.
because we should be growing and improving. And so I had actually started writing some thoughts and some chapters that I thought I would include in book number 2 years ago, not knowing exactly the theme of the book, but kind of the same genre that I'm in. And I thought last summer, I was like, great, I already have some chapters written. I'm going to use that. I went back and read that stuff and I was like, it's not good enough anymore, because I had grown and evolved. And while I could have used it verbatim, I knew that I was better than that. Like, it still read fine, but it wasn't capable. It wasn't my best. And so I wasn't going to put that out there. So it was more work than I originally thought. But it's your name, it's your brand. You should be proud of what you're putting out there, not just checking a box. So I really wanted to make sure that it was a product that I could hold up and be like, yes, this I'm really excited about, because I put the work in to write something that I really think brings value.
Yeah. That's sometimes that's hard for people to really step back and really be analytical. Is this good? Does this reflect who I am and what I believe in my belief system? Is this, that can be tough for some people. So that's awesome that you did that. And I know there's so many, I can only imagine there's so many nuggets in this book for people can to relate to and to learn from. But when you think about maybe that one thing in your book that lights you up in the book that maybe could really impact somebody reading it, like what comes up for you, that special part of your book?
There's so many pieces. So I guess I'll say this, like there are 3 parts of the book. So I have a podcast called Move the Ball, and at the end of every episode I always say, until next time, make sure you suit up, you show up, and you move the ball. So this book is structured in those 3 parts: suiting up, showing up, and moving the ball. But I think the big thing that I like to hone in as a theme is be mindful of how you're showing up every day. The subtitle of this book is How Life Changes When You Show Up. And so if you show up the right way you're going to see the outcomes that you want. But I mean, we all hear how you show up matters, right? Well, that's great. But practically, how do you do that? And so that's what this book really is focused on. It's suiting up with the right mindset, but not just mindset, but also the preparatory work that you should be doing so that you can show up in a more effective way. And so I think that that's important. And the other thing someone said to me the other day, which I included in the book, was what did he say? He said, if you aren't there, you can never be found. And I was like, I really like that. Meaning, like, if you're not showing up and putting yourself out there the right way, then you can't be found. Could mean you can't meet the right people, but also the opportunities cannot find you, right? If you're not putting yourself out there. And I look at some of my friends who have done great things, and they've shown up and done things that most people would not have done. I'll give you a quick example. Yeah. So I have a friend, Hugh Harrison. He works for Mark Cuban. I said, how did you get to work for Mark, right? That's kind of a big deal. And he said, well, I was looking for a job and I took a billboard out in New York City and I put my resume on it. Like, and either Mark or Mark's people saw it, and the rest is history. But like, how many people would actually do that, right? Not many are going to be that bold. And that's really what showing up, like when I look at the brand that I've built, there are things that I have done that are crazy that most people wouldn't do, of taking a chance, going on trips that you're really acting on faith, like this is going to work out, right? And so you're believing in yourself and just going against the grain and doing things to try to move the ball and to dominate. And so I think that's the important thing too, is like, look at how you're showing up, and are you doing enough? Are you showing up the right way and pushing yourself, not just the traditional stuff you would do, but really challenging yourself to bring a different version of yourself forward?
Yeah. I literally say this a lot when I'm working with athletes about showing up. I'm all into acronyms and cool little like phrases and stuff, because it allows athletes and performers to remember some of this stuff. So I always say show up and blow up. And when I mean that, I mean blowing up all your preparation, all your training, all your light, right? Like blow it up, man. Show up and blow up. Also too, when you were talking about your friend, that quote, I'm sure you've heard the statement of be where your feet are, right?
Yep, it's in the book.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Because when I talk about that, I always say, if you're not where your feet are, where are you?
Yes.
And more often than not, it's in the future or in the past. And so it just reminds us to be where your feet are so you can be seen, right? Yes. So it's awesome. So do you have another book in you?
Well, this one's just about to come out. So I told myself as I was writing this was it. I'm like, I can't, it's so much work to write a book. And so, but of course my mind is like, there could be some other things. I don't know all the details yet, but there's some thoughts. I'm like, well, maybe I will say that within the next year, I will not write another one, a few years from now, maybe, but it's a lot of work to write a book. And also I'm writing it not to check a box and say, hey, I've written another book, but it's really about making an impact. Like, there's so many reasons why people write books, especially if they're a first-time author. I've come across a lot of people that do it because they're like, oh, well, people will take me more seriously if I have a book, and it gives me this position of authority. And it's like, okay, maybe, but then I look at the books they write and I'm like, you're proud to put your name on, you know what I mean? Like, for me, I take a lot of pride in the amount of time I spend to make a high quality, or what I believe is a high quality product. It's not a check the box exercise. So there could be another one down the road, but it might be a little while.
Well, since we are potentially talking about the future, I'm lately been into doing these future self exercises, because a lot of times I get so involved and ingrained about being right here, right now. But sometimes I don't take the time to check out, like, what does my future self look like? What do I want? Because I've never been into the 5-year, 10-year goals, because I know that there's so much that I change and life changes that it typically steers me away. However, I've learned to formalize my future self and then work backwards from it. And so, so when you think about whether it is 5, 10, 20 years, your future self, because you've done you've done a lot of stuff in your life.
Mhm.
So what do you see as your future self beyond where you're at right now in this moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think for me, the big thing is because the movement has evolved into having more of a significant presence in the sports space. One of the things that I've always been passionate about is helping more student athletes and athletes too. I mean, pro athletes that are playing now leverage their brands to be successful beyond the game. And so I think you'll see more of my work shift from the corporate consulting that I do to more work in the student athlete domain. Student athlete being colleges, hopefully Power Five. I'm an SEC girl, so hopefully SEC. But and so I think that for me, I mean, just to be quite honest, a couple of years ago, if I were to reach out to those schools, I wouldn't get a phone call back or an email because no one knew who I was, right? So you got to put that time in to develop your brand and that credibility or the validity that goes along with an established brand. So I think for me, the time is right to continue to focus and push in that direction with all the work that has occurred to date. So I think that's kind of, the thing that I'm really focused on. Someone did say to me before, like, oh, have you ever thought about an NFL network deal? I'm like, no, but now that you've told me that, it's always in the back of my head. So, I'll just throw that out there. Maybe there'll be some on-camera presence for me. But it's not so much about I don't want to be an analyst or a commentator. It's really about the same stuff that I'm doing. But if there's an opportunity to make an impact with that stuff on a larger scale, on a network like that, of course, I would entertain that. That would be stupid not to.
That'd be fun.
It would be, yes. Move over, Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky. Here I come.
I know, right? There you have it. Well, one more fun question here before we close out. Because I know that the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about the Bears and we were talking about football and but if you were to pick an MVP as of today, this week, so far, out of all the play this season, who would be your front runner? Who would be your MVP?
Are you talking about Bears specifically or across the league?
Across the league.
That's a great question because I haven't really been following that much pro football just because I've been so busy with getting this book out here the last
I bet.
So I will say, though, I'm going to modify your question just a little bit and say Bears wise. I would say Justin Fields would be the MVP just because, and I haven't watched every Bears game. I usually have them on, but I'm working and not watching intently. But just when I look at him and just how much he tries to make plays happen. I mean, they just played the Dolphins and they lost, but he had a record-breaking game. And so, I mean, when I look at the heart of this young man and just what he does to try to bring value to the team, right? I mean, as a quarterback yourself, the quarterback role has evolved over the last 2 decades. And so, I mean, he's really trying to, there's a lot of pressure that's put on him too. And he's been with the team now for over a year. And so obviously at that level, you get a lot of criticism too. And so I've just been really pleased to see his contributions, to the team. Hopefully that'll translate into some wins here. So I will say from a Bear standpoint, I would say he would be the MVP.
Awesome. For him across the league, if it was like a decision for me to make, especially for him, I would say he's probably the comeback player of the year. Because there are some games in the beginning of the season, I'm like, what's going on? And I know there's new system and play calling, different personnel, but he's showing that he's got it. And I think he's using his legs more, which is making some plays and showing his athletic ability. But so I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. So my Josh Allen is, to me, he's my MVP, either him or Mahomes at this point. But lately he's looking like Josh Allen a little bit, which I like.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the Bills are definitely going to be a contender this year to take it all. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the season continues to progress. And on the NFC side, the Eagles are dominating as well. And I went to Alabama, so it's nice to see Jalen Hurts do well. And but yeah, I'm definitely excited for the Eagles to continue to do well too.
Yeah. Jalen and also Tua. They're both doing
Yes,
good.
and Tua as well. Correct. Mhm.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. What a treat to have you back on the show to talk about your journey and your new book. So I encourage everyone to buy her new book, Dominate the Game. This comes out this Friday. Where can they buy your book and where can they follow you on social media?
Yeah, so pre-orders are live, and so you can pre-order on Amazon. If you are one of those that likes to have personalized signed copies of books, I have a website too where I do sign all the copies, and there's a comment box. You can let me know how you want it signed or who to address it to. If you go to dominateandmove.com, and you can pick up the book there. You can also get Move the Ball on either sites too. So, if you've enjoyed what we talked about, hope you check it out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.